there was a reduction of 29.9%. There's been a further reduction this morning over the figures yesterday morning of 0.45% of the number of cases. But since this morning, there's been an increase in active cases of 95, a percentage increase of 2.9%. Deaths as a percentage of all cases are at 0.78%. So, Peter, there is some optimism around.
Look, there certainly is, and I had a professor on my show tonight, Alan, when we looked at the modelling that the government had put out, which is highly theoretical and using inputs from overseas data. But he admitted, you know, he's a professor in infectious diseases at the ANU, that even he didn't anticipate that the drop-off would be as fast as it is in Australia. Yes, we've got a while to go yet, but we should all, I think, take a bow tonight that we are where we are, and it could be a lot worse. Absolutely,
absolutely. Well, look, before we go any further, I should say Andrew Belt tonight showed remarkable courage, and it's to his great credit, because the High Court today, as you know, in a stunning intervention in the most controversial court case since Lindy Chamberlain, has delivered a unanimous decision repudiating years of often vile attacks against Cardinal George Pell. The emphasis is on unanimous, which must prompt the question, how did Victoria's criminal justice system allow the case against Cardinal Pell to proceed so far on evidence when, according to the High Court today, there was, quote, a significant possibility that an innocent person has been convicted because the evidence did not establish guilt to the requisite standard of proof. Now remember, this was the unanimous view of the High Court, 7-0. Cardinal Pell was convicted in 2018 by a jury on the evidence of a surviving choir boy, now a middle-aged man. A second child, about whom it was alleged the Cardinal abused, had denied ever being abused before dying several years ago of a heroin overdose. No one else had witnessed the crimes. Cardinal Pell was charged, amazingly, after Victorian police had taken what must be regarded as an extraordinary step in advertising for sexual abuse victims of Pell in an operation which was set up in 2013. There's no denying that the crimes alleged are horrible, but it was alleged they occurred in a 5 to 6 minute window in the sacristy. The sacristy is the room in the church where a priest prepares for service and where vestments and articles of worship are kept. Cardinal Pell, according to the evidence, would proceed at the end of the service at St Patrick's Cathedral to the steps of the cathedral, where he would remain for 10 to 20 minutes after Mass. For the offending to have occurred, Cardinal Pell would have needed to have left the front steps unaccompanied by his right-hand man, Monsignor Charles Portelli, who gave evidence that in these circumstances he was always with the Cardinal. Cardinal Pell would have had to have left the steps unaccompanied by Portelli, hastened back to the sacristy to molest the boys. Much was made in court by Pell's defence team of the evidence given by the living victim that the boys broke away from the procession after Mass and snuck into the sacristy, the room where priests dress for Mass, where they were then confronted by Cardinal Pell and abused. The church's sacristan, that's the person in charge of the sacristy and its contents, gave evidence that after Mass, the sacristy was overrun with activity when the altar was cleared. The Jesuit priest Frank Brennan has described the impossibility of Cardinal Pell being able to carry out the alleged offences while wearing his religious robes. Father Brennan wrote, an alb, that's the massive white garment that comes down to the ankles. Father Brennan said, an alb is a long robe, worn under heavy chasuble. That's the outer vest. It's the last piece, to use our language, it's the last bit of the Archbishop's gear. But back to Father Brennan, quote, an alb is a long robe worn under a heavy chasuble. It's secured and set in place by what's called a cincture. A cincture is a type of belt, a girdle. It's tightly tied. Father Brennan said an alb cannot be unbuttoned or unzipped. An alb cannot be parted. It's like a seamless dress. Father Brennan said later the complainant said that Pell moved the vestments to the side. Father Brennan argued an alb secured with a cincture can't be moved to the side. The jury was told there were no splits or openings in the chasubles. Father Brennan has written, quote, the proposition that the offences charged were committed immediately after a Mass by a fully robed archbishop in the sacristy with an open door and in full view from the corridor seemed incredible to my mind. I should point out that the Victorian Bar President, Matt Collins, described the initial conviction of Pell as, quote, highly unusual, having been made on behalf of a victim who who had never reported abuse. Matt Collins said, quote, "No one can recall a case where an accused person was convicted of an offence against a deceased person of this kind." Dr. Collins said it would be an extraordinary situation to be convicted of a crime against a deceased person if there were no witnesses. Paul Kelly, the editor-at-large of the Australian newspaper, wrote in March last year, "Did Pell get a fair trial?" He wrote, "The implausibility of the evidence raises serious doubts. The anger of victims is entirely justified based on their betrayal by priests and bishops. But the historic wrong done to victims," wrote Paul Kelly, "cannot be atoned by the doing of another wrong, by convicting Pell, if such a conviction carries the enduring stain of a potential miscarriage of justice now and into the future, raising dark questions about our character as a country, our institutions and our legal system." Wrote Paul Kelly, "The test of our system of justice is its capacity to elevate reason before emotion." He also made the point that, I quote, "Pell was not on trial for the evils of the church. He was not on trial for the betrayal of young children by priests. He was not on trial for any defects in his own response to child sexual abuse. He could not be on trial for any of these things." Central to the High Court's deliberations in this matter is whether belief in the complainant could be used as a basis for eliminating doubt raised by other witnesses, several of whom were credible people. Cardinal Pell has described the allegations as deranged falsehoods. The High Court, as I said, found in his favour 7-0. After the High Court decision, Cardinal Pell issued a statement which said in part, "I have consistently maintained my innocence while suffering from a serious injustice. This has been remedied today with the High Court's unanimous decision." He said, "I hold no ill will towards my accuser. I do not want my acquittal to add to the hurt and bitterness so many feel. There is hurt and bitterness enough." He added, "However, my trial was not a referendum on the Catholic Church, nor a referendum on how church authorities in Australia dealt with the crime of pedophilia in the church. The point was whether I had committed these awful crimes, and I did not." He went on, in offering thanks to those who prayed for him, to his family, to his advisors and his legal team, and to quote, "Those who spoke up for me and suffered as a result." He offered his, quote, "deepest thanks and gratitude." His statement ended, and I quote, "Finally, I'm aware of the current health crisis. I'm praying for all those affected and our medical frontline personnel."